Hey there, how you doing? Long time no see. It might have been a while since some of you guys saw me. You can tell I've been busy growing my beard, about 5.5, 6 months now, and it started quite by accident. Started out as being a bit of a Movember expression that kind of exploded over my face. But I didn't shave for a couple weeks, and people come up to me and says, "Hey Ken, I really like your beard," which got me thinking. Nobody's ever come up and said, "Hey Ken, I really like your face." So I thought I'd just let it grow for a couple of months and see how it goes. And then I started getting different comments. You know, guys come up and say, "Man, you ever look tough?" And girls like, "Wow, that's pretty hot. I'm a real beard girl," which confused me because I didn't know if that meant that they liked beards or had a beard. But I went a little bit further and people started saying, "Hey, you look like a terrorist." So I'm like, that would be something, eh? A blind terrorist? Trying to find my targets and such. But honestly, I think Canada should send me to an ISIS training camp. That would screw them up. Excuse me, can you show me how to build this bomb again? Sorry I blew the last one up again. Really not a build your own kind of bomb kind of guy. Of course, last week or two, somebody says, with that blind stuff in your hand, you kind of look like Moses. And I'm like, you know what? A blind Moses. That kind of does explain maybe the 40 years the Jews spent walking through the desert, eh? It's like, hey, everybody, follow me! I'm just having some fun with my face. I was just down at Toronto. I was performing some stand-up comedy, and a homeless guy came up to me, and I thought he was going to ask me for money, but instead he opened my hand and put a loonie in my hand and said, "God bless, friend, get yourself a cup of coffee." I'm like, thanks. The coffee's $1.50. Like I said, I'm just having some fun with my face. I don't get a chance to grow a beard when a lot of other guys do during the hockey playoffs because I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan still. And unfortunately, nothing's going to happen this year with beards in this area anyways. But the real reason why I do it, or did it, and do a lot of the stuff that I do, is to demonstrate a physical expression of how our body grows. It's pretty easy to see how our hair grows, and we can kind of comb it or curl it or dye it. We can shave, we can trim. But it represents everything inside of our body. All of those things we can mold and shape. As a matter of fact, your skeleton is actually molded by the muscles pull on, especially this muscle here, the biceps, creates a groove inside of the humerus based on this kind of motion back and forth. The little bumps on top of your humerus arms here, when you lift and you pull and you start to do things, these bones mold and shift. Because the reality is we grow up and we grow old. We constantly grow. It slows down a little bit as we get older, but it never stops. You cannot stop your body from growing, but you do have influence over its growth. This is my point. Putting in a positive influence. Things like stretch, contract, even of facial muscles might help you look a little bit younger over a longer period of time. I really don't buy into the "it's age" phenomenon. Age to me, AGE, means against gravity experience. You've been pushed down for longer and longer. It's more time than age. Along with time is when we were younger, we'd run and jump and climb trees and such. When's the last time an adult has climbed trees? Therefore, we go to a gym. And, we might mimic climbing a tree by doing chin-ups or lat pull-ups or something like this to activate these muscles that really don't have any way of us to do that in natural fighting gravity things. You might push up. If you're an electrician, you might be doing stuff, or a mechanic, you might be doing stuff overhead. But a lot of us don't do that unless we're putting dishes away or such. We don't get much challenge in those ranges. Therefore, going to a gym can be a good idea. I really like lifestyle exercise like yoga, Pilates, which both encourage breathing, movement, contraction, stability for movement. You must stabilize something to mobilize something. People talk about the core like it stops here. But the core has to stabilize itself from somewhere. So if I bend forward and pick up a stool, my core has to be strong, yes, but these hamstrings need to be taut and tightened. And they're not naturally going to do that. So I contract. If I'm doing like laundry or dishes, as I bend forward 10 or 15 degrees, I still contract these muscles. One of my karate instructors says there's secrets in the pants. I don't like to share that, but there are secrets in the pants. So when you bend over, your core has to be strong, but it also has to be stabilized for something else to pull up. General rule of thumb is if you're looking at what you're picking up, you're using your back. If you don't look at what you're bending, then you're using your back. Your knees, I apologize. However, your stability has to come from the ground, then through limbs, levers, then through core. And you know, a lot of people train their core, they train their rhomboids, they do the rowing and stuff, and then they go to work and they kind of go like this. They don't turn it on. It's fun, it'd be great to have a Ferrari in your garage, but it's not much fun unless you turn it on, take it for a ride, use it. Use your core. Every time you breathe, tighten up your stomach. Hold yourself. Same thing with posture. I tell so many people, you have an anterior head carriage. Several things happen inside of our body. We talk about growing. These tissues will constantly grow shorter and shorter and shorter. These ones will grow longer and longer and longer. Eventually you're going to go like this. It happens. Look around. The only thing that separates you from your seniors is time. Look at your colleagues. If you've only been working for a year or two, look at somebody who's been there for 30 years. You're going to look like them. If you do the same things day in and day out, you're going to look like people who do the same things day in and day out. It's simple. Sitting in a chair, 8 hours a day. Plus then you go home and you get on the internet and you spend another 4 to 6 hours at home. These muscles are going to get shorter and shorter. Your hip flexors, pectoralis major, minor, more importantly. These muscles are going to get longer, rhomboids, levator scapulas. You pull forward like this. These muscles tend to get shorter, scalenes, anterior and middle scalenes. All of the ribs kind of come down. They get tighter and tighter, much like my shirt. And as after years go by, I go to stand up and it's stuck. It's growing together. Spend some time, stretch. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. One of the other phenomena inside the body is reciprocal inhibition. That means when one muscle is turning on, the other one has to turn off. Otherwise, there would be no movement. The more heavier something you pick up, the more this turns on, the more that has to loosen. Otherwise, again, there'd be no motion. But we need to turn these muscles on to strengthen, but more importantly, just to use them, to activate them. It's nice to have them, but activate them. Neurologically, that'll turn these muscles off. Blah, 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 blah. These muscles are what they call phasic muscles. They contract and relax, contract and relax. These muscles, these are tonic muscles. They sustain tone all of the time. Neurologically, it's nothing to do with us. It's natural. It's the way our spinal cord is wired. So every time these muscles contract, it's good. As soon as they relax, these one says, I'll take up the slack, I'll take up the slack, I'll take up the slack. So it's going to pull in. Plus, once you get it so far, gravity takes over, has much more influence. So try and fight, work with, work against, constantly mold and shape yourself in your environment. It's much like a garden. If I plant my garden in May, and then I go back out in October and go, wow, where'd all these weeds come from? Where's all my carrots? Where's all my tomatoes? It was never attended to. It was the negative influences overcame the power, the positive influences. It's fairly simple. A gardener, I'm not good at it. I've got a lot of animals I've got to deal with. But a gardener would get out there and kind of toil in the soil, make sure there's the right pH balance, water it if it's needed, make sure that all the other plants are away from it. Even plants, they grow. If they're looking for the sun, they'll bend over this way to get closer to or away from something. It's one thing I do like about watching annual flowers go through a life cycle in 1 year, a perennial go through a life cycle in several years. But things grow. We grow. Keep it in mind. Have influence over your body's growth. It does make a difference. I'm 45 years old. I was a downhill skier, a ski racer with the Ontario Disabled Alpine Racing Team. And yes, I didn't go as fast as most people who can see because I had blacked out goggles, couldn't see a thing. I went over cliffs, I hit telephone poles, thousands of race gates, those kind of things. And you know what? My knees still work really well. I've had traumatic injuries of ankles, knees, hip, low back. I had a mechanical issue of my low back. I've had neuropathy of this. I've beaten shoulder tendonitis, several elbow tendinitises. The philosophies that I've learned as a massage therapist and promote as a massage therapist work because I live by them. 45 years old, and I look and feel better because of some of this. I'm not going to be able to prove a lot of this until I'm 90, but the idea is we have influence. You can see how we have influence with our hair, with our beards. I'm hoping females, you don't have beards, but if you do, you have influence over how it looks, or even the way we dress, the way we act, all of the body gestures, all of these kind of things are within our abilities to support or not to support. It's a conscious choice, so please don't fall victim to gravity and aging, including platysma. It's a muscle. A lot of times with an anterior head carriage, this muscle underneath here gets stretched. We straighten people out and they're like, oh, but I have a double chin. But it's a muscle. The muscle actually attaches in the upper part of the chest. So contracting this muscle gives it exercise. Muscles doesn't matter if it's in your neck, if it's in your hand, or in your foot. It wants to do its job. It wants to expand and contract. And if you have a muscle tendon problem, it requires a muscle tendon solution. Doesn't matter where it is. If it's a ligament problem, joint problem, it requires a ligament or joint solution. Doesn't matter where it is. Nerve problem requires a different kind of approach. But generally speaking, and this is where it's at, this is what I'd like you to take out of this. Doesn't matter what the problem is. Active range of motion of every joint in every way, every day is the only way to feel, look, and be your best. So it's not enough when I sit for 14 hours to stand and say that's the opposite. It's not the opposite. Extension is the opposite of flexion. So actively get yourself into a position where you can stretch your hip flexors. You can, don't do it on a moving. You need stability. Put a leg up on one or two steps, hold on to a railing, lean forward, stretch your hip flexors. Get extension. Do the opposite. Do the exact opposite to the one thing that you do all the time. So if your shoulders are always rounding in, simple. Open, 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 open. Big breath in, extend. Tuck the chin back because it's always out here. Tuck the chin back, which is going to elongate these muscles. They'll get used to stretching in time. They want to be back in normal. The other problem that we fight. As we stand, we're a little bit wobbly when we're a baby. We take a first couple steps. We start to learn how to fight gravity. This is effective. This is not effective. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 40, 60, 80 years. That same proprioceptive information goes inside your brain, and it starts out as a little line, a little groove like in a record, if you remember what a record was, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper entrenched until it's like a ditch. And then your brain loses its elasticity to learn new things if you allow it to do the same thing again and again and again. Here's a good example. Take your fingers, interlock them together. My right thumb is on top. Now I'm going to get you to close your eyes, switch them. Put your left thumb on top. Now just be quiet and still and listen to your brain scream. Because it's not right. It's got the wrong angles. It's got the wrong length. It's got the wrong tension relationships. It doesn't make sense. So eventually, if you're not paying attention, your body will naturally go back to its other. Here's the thing. Years ago, I caught myself working at my desk. I always cross my legs, right leg on top. I'm working away on my desk. I'm like, hey, why? Switch them. A couple hours later, I realized, hey, my right leg's on top. Who authorized that? I wanted my left leg on front. And I kept doing this for years until a couple weeks ago, I'm just typing away on my computer, and then I'm like, oh, I should switch my legs. And I'm like, oh, wait a second, my left leg is in front. So we can change. It's called postural re-education. It's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done because of all those presets that are up in your central processing unit. One of the first principles I learned about body growth was when I did my bodybuilding training at the YMCA in 1992. One of the principles they often talk about there is a SAID principle. S-A-I-D. Specific adaptation to imposed demand. We have no influence over our body's specific adaptation. It is specific. If you smoke, eventually your body becomes a better smoker to a point. If you run, eventually your body becomes a better runner, better cyclist, better walker, but only specific to that event or activity, nothing else. It's not transferable. There might be a little bit of transferable, that's why we do some cross training and such like that, but it's the imposed demand that we do have influence over. So the specific adaptation, the body's going to take care of that. The imposed demand has to start mental. My martial arts instructor often says we train mind, body, and spirit first. Most important that you want to make a change. Second of all, that you act to make a change. And eventually your body will change. If it don't challenge you, it can't change you. But it needs to be a gentle challenge. You're growing it. We grow up, we grow old. 2 ways to take care of your yard. You can get out there with a little spade, some scissors, clippers, and take care of things, year after year and grow it to the way you want it. Or you say, well, I want some drastic changes, and you hire a backhoe. And they come in and they rip and they make some drastic changes quickly, much like surgery. But it has to heal with scar, and that even has to grow. And then a couple years later, it's beautiful, it's perfect the way you want it, but it needs an influence. You might need to put grass seed down, you might need to, you still have to grow it. There's no other way around it. Everything grows. When we're young, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to heal a fracture. As you get older, it might take 10 to 12 weeks, but it still heals. We're constantly taking one cell out and putting another cell in. 5 years generally to get a black belt in martial arts, depending on the school you go to, but it should take at least that long because it, on average, takes about 5 years to get a completely brand new musculoskeletal system. Based on its environment, it'll change. Every 5 years, it changes minute to minute to minute. It just happens so slow you don't see it for 5 or 10 years. Think about the change your children make between 0 and 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. Rapidly growing, slows down a little bit, but then say take a look at your parents, 65 to 70, 70 to 75. These are increments of time that things do change over time. That's another thing. When you think about putting a positive influence into your body, just hold yourself back a little. They say fake it till you make it, whatever it is. You want to be different, act different. It's pretty simple, but you have to do it on a regular basis. Pick 6 months that your child doesn't need a positive influence. It's much like gardening with plants, raising children. You're growing a body. Do your best to appreciate it, respect it. It will heal. It will grow based on its environment. I guess I'm going to talk about healing. Just generally speaking, even if you have a discomfort in through here, gentle stretch provides a proper line. Says, hey, this is the line I want to use it along. Please fix it along that line. That's all I'm going to say because I really didn't want this to be that long. But after 6 months of hard growth and molding this, I got this to the perfect shade of gray. Oh, there are 50. I wanted to show somebody. For posterity, I don't take a lot of pictures because I can't see them. But I want to share this kind of stuff because there's underlying reasons why I do almost everything that I do. And the other thing is, I'm starting to become more aware of the microbial environment. We've got about, I think what they say, 1 trillion cells that are human DNA and 10 trillion cells that are microbial. Little bacteria, viruses, germs, those kind of things on us, in us, and we need them. So I'm kind of thinking I'm growing a bit of a rainforest for my microbial colonies. Anyways, that's it for now. I hope it's been beneficial. Please check out some more, ask me some questions, and I'll try and do some more videos. I have to do a one-shot deal because I don't have anybody helping me edit it, and we'll see how this one goes, but I'm going to put it out there, and please, give me positive, negative comments. What do I look like? Whatever. I don't care. I really don't care. What I care about is you and your growth. So that's it for now. Ken Roach RMT. Thanks so much.